Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here. TED Talks have been one of my favorite things to watch, and I'm glad to be doing one finally. As you can probably tell, I'm a little bit nervous, so bear with me. But I've got a lot of cool things to talk about, so let's just get started. So, stress is something that we all deal with in our everyday lives, whether it be at home, work, or school, as most of you are aware, I'm sure. But what if we could just run all of that away? What if we could just run and leave our stress behind? That's what we wanted to find out. So we ran a study. Before we get talking about that, I want to define stress just a little bit. So stress is a pressure or a tension exerted on a material object, much like me pushing on my arm here. Now, while that is true for us, we do feel the stress and pressure on us. We're more than that. We have a brain. And for that, it's a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. So, much like a project being due for school, your boss being on you, or something of that sort, you feel the stress up in your head as well as in your body. Stress has a lot of interesting effects on our body. First off, your adrenaline glands pump adrenaline, which raises your heart rate and your blood pressure. This increases the amount of sugar in your blood, and your adrenaline cortex sends out cortisol to as part of the stress response. Now, this is good for you if you were being chased by like a bear. It gives you the energy and speed and endurance to get away from that situation. But if you're just kind of sitting at a red light or in traffic, it doesn't really do you much good. Now, stress also kills brain cells. We're continuously growing new brain cells, but you can kill off more than what you grow. Stress has also been associated with depression and anxiety. A lot of times, stress does lead to those things and can be really bad circumstance. And it also makes your immune system not work as well as it should. This makes you more susceptible to the common cold, the flu, or many other sicknesses. On top of that, stress can be good for you. It can be. The right amount of stress is good for our bodies. It helps keep us in at like a nice state. But too much of it can be deadly, like I said. It's great for situations that you need to get out of dealing with stressful situations. Not so great when it's constant. So, for our experiment, we used Alan here. Alan is a 23-year-old UCO psychology student. He's newlywed, and he works at a tag agency here in Oklahoma. So, the real question is, what's wrong with Alan? I know you're all asking that. What's the problem with him? Well, here's the problem. School has been a lot harder on him than what he realized. Before, he made it by without having to try very hard. He was a very smart kid, so he didn't have to put much effort into it. Now that he's in the later years of his program, he's starting to hit harder things and needing to study more. So it's taking up more time than what he's used to. On top of that, his job, his wife is, or not his wife, his boss is pregnant. Because of his boss being pregnant, she's worried about everything being okay whenever she leaves. So she's definitely putting a lot more stress on the employees, him included, as he's kind of one of the upper people there. So that's been a large stressor on his life with that, as well as, all your basic college issues, finances, whatever it may be. Well, all this is being brought home. And it's dealing with him a lot of complaining to his wife, which is putting a strain on their relationship. And as you can assume, that's not a great thing. So what we did is we hypothesized that all this stress at work and school was causing him to complain to his wife. So we thought, okay, exercise tends to be good for everyone and is a good way to help with stress. So what if we have him do that? But instead of making it like the hour-long exercises you always see and hear that you need to be doing, what if we just had him run for 30 minutes? So I hypothesized that by running 30 minutes every day, this would reduce his stress and therefore hopefully his complaining. So that's what we did. We were going to measure how many times he complained to his wife. We had her be a key part to this experiment, and just every time he would complain, she would write it down or put it down in notes on her phone. So we would do a baseline. We'd do about 2 weeks before we had him start running, just to see how much he actually complained. After that, we'd have them run on a treadmill for 30 minutes every day and measure how much he complains then. For about 4 weeks is what we did. For the baseline, as you can see, he complained on average about 6.1 times a day. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm sure if you had someone listening to them complain, you'd probably be over it by that time. But that's just kind of what we got in the first 2 weeks. After implementing the experiment and having him run, this is what we got. As you can see, at the very beginning, when he first started running, it actually ended up being higher than what it had before. And as time went on, it progressively got lower and lower, till ultimately, surprisingly enough, on the last day, he reached no complaining. Now, the average on that ends up only being about 5.3. It doesn't feel like that much of a difference. But looking at the graph, it's very heavy on the front end, very light on the back end. So we think that with more time, it would have been a lot less. We only did a month there, so it didn't end up being that much. So the purpose of doing this was to see if there is a way to help with stress and help prepare these, marriages and relationships that are struggling because of all this stress. Like I said, a limitation that we had with doing this was we didn't have that much time. That and we only had one subject. That's obviously the more subjects you have, the better you're going to get your results, but we used with what we had and the time we had. Our thoughts are, it's a great prep, it's a great start to an experiment, but we definitely think that there needs to be further research done in this kind of category. We think that for future researches, you could do more people. With that, you could also extend the time, maybe even the baseline, to get more of a read of what they are on average. Maybe bump it up to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe even a month. And then for the actual experiment, maybe do half a year, 6 months, and just see where that goes. And so with that, as I said, stress is something that everyone deals with, but you can deal with it. You can find ways to work with it. If you are dealing with stress, just take 30 minutes out of your day, go for a run. If you're got a gym like UCO does and all students have a free membership to, go run on one of the treadmills. Put in some headphones, watch your favorite episodes of Friends, The Office, whatever you're into, and just take some time to breathe, relax, and to run. Thank you. That's all the time I have, and I appreciate you guys.